stress everywhere, but no solution in sight. Not true. There is stress everywhere, but there are plenty of solutions, and you have all kinds of power when it comes to stress. One of the things that can help you to feel more powerful, more in control when it comes to the stress in your life is knowing your triggers, knowing what triggers stress for you. There are so many different stressors in life. Some of them we can control, some of them we cannot. Some of them are external, some are even internal. Believe it or not, we create our own stressors, and you do too. Everybody does to some degree or other. But knowing what kinds of things or people or situations trigger more stress in your life is critical. Why? Because if you know what's triggering your stress, you can do something about it. Now, before you start giving me a list of excuses, let me just stop you right there. Excuses are useless. If you want to have a sense of responsibility and control and power in your life, then you absolutely have to come to terms with the fact that you have the power to act or react or respond, hence responsibility, respond to those triggers in your life. If you just say, these are the things that trigger my stress, and that's that, and there's nothing I can do about it, especially if they're external triggers, then guess what, my friend? You are volunteering to be a victim. That's right, I said it. You're volunteering. It's your choice, 100% your choice. Because even if a trigger is external, even if you can do absolutely nothing to stop it, you still have the choice and the power of how you behave, how you react, how you perceive. So you have all the power in the world in that sense. Remember, we can't control the universe. We can't control everything around us. We can't control everything external to us. But what we can control is ourselves. So, number one, you have to know what types of things, people, or situations trigger stress for you. Once you know what those are, you have to examine them and decide how you're going to deal with it. Because absolutely 100% you have that choice, you have that power, and you have that ability. 100% guaranteed. So let's say that your mother-in-law is a stressor. I don't know, pulled that out of the air. That's a truism for a lot of people. A lot of people complain about their mothers-in-law. I don't know. It's just the way it is. It's one of those things in our society where it's become a joke of sorts, right? Comical to some degree. But let's say that your mother-in-law or some other relative, maybe it's your own mother, maybe it's your sister, maybe it's your neighbor, whoever. Let's say a person in your life is a trigger for you. That maybe when you talk to them or when you see them, more often than not, they create some kind of stress in your life. They stress you out. They bring anxiety into your experience. Maybe they say all the wrong things or do all the wrong things, or maybe they're not supportive, or maybe they're too critical. Whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. If you identify a person, or maybe more than one person, as a definite trigger for stress in your life, then it's time to do something about it. Maybe you can do something like see less of that person, but that's not always an option. Especially if you work with that person, you have to see them every day, or if it's a family member and you have to see them, their family, it's not an option. You have to go see them. It's up to you how you react to that trigger. If you react to that trigger, right? You don't have to react. You can respond instead, right? If we think of reaction more of a knee-jerk thing, which we don't necessarily have control over, versus a reaction where you're making a conscious choice. So if somebody is saying things that irk you, or saying things that are not supportive of you or are overly critical of you. You can choose not to have a strong emotional reaction in an outwardly manner. Here's what I mean by that. So let's say that somebody's overly critical of you or not supportive of you. It might hurt your feelings, right? And that's normal, right? We're human. It's going to happen. But what you can change is not having an outwardly reaction to that trigger. You don't have to get into a fight or run out of the room crying or get verbally loud with that person, whatever your thing is that just escalates the stress. So see how you have the power of what you do with that trigger. It doesn't mean that you don't feel the feelings. You're human. If somebody hurts your feelings, you're going to feel that hurt. That's fine. But it doesn't mean that you have to react in such a way that is only contributing to the situation, making it worse. And now the two of you are having an argument or whatever the case is. You should know, and you will know if you give this some thought, what your triggers are. Maybe it's something at work. Maybe it's a coworker who never pulls their weight or is always late, or whatever the case may be. Yes, it's frustrating and it makes you feel a certain way and affects you in certain ways, but it's absolutely up to you of what you do with that. So this is what I'm talking about. Knowing your triggers so that you can adjust yourself in such a way that the stress that results from that is minimized or even eliminated altogether for you. I want to make sure that you don't misunderstand this approach. This isn't about doing something to improve their experience. Their experience may improve as a result, but the main goal is to improve your experience and reduce the stress or even eliminate the stress that that particular trigger is causing. So this is why it's so important, because look, you may be thinking to yourself, the last thing I'm interested in doing is making things better for those people who are my triggers. No, this is for you. Their situation may improve by extension, but this is about improving your experience and your situation to a point where you reduce or even eliminate the stress that is brought on by that particular trigger. So, when you finish watching this video, sit back and think about what kind of things trigger stress in my life. And you may even want to start a list. And every time you get a trigger, write it down. Because sometimes when we sit back and try to think of all the things that may trigger stress for you, it's difficult to come up with a complete list. But as you go through life, as you go through your days, and something triggers you and you think to yourself, yeah, this is something that normally upsets me, write it down so that you can come up with a strategy of what's a better alternative for me to how I react or how I behave or how I process this thing, so that I don't get as stressed out, or maybe I don't get stressed out at all. And again, this may be people, this may be situations, circumstances, whatever the case may be. But remember that while stress is everywhere, and sometimes it comes from us from outside of ourselves. Sometimes we seem to contribute to the stress in your life from within. The bottom line is that you are not powerless. Far from it. You are powerful, and there are things you can do. And knowing your triggers and then adjusting how you respond to those triggers is one of those things. So give that a try.